All right, I want to take you back to December of 2016, so not that long ago, when a Lincoln County child died after the parents refused medical care and pulled her out of the hospital, citing religious reasons. And many of those medical details surrounding the case do remain private at this time, but an Oklahoma senator is now introducing legislation to put a stop to this parental option, a bill he says could have saved that child's life. So with us now is Senator Jason Smalley with Senate Bill 93. I know session starts in just a few weeks, thank you for taking time out of your schedule. As I stated, a lot of the details surrounding that case remain kind of clouded in confidentiality, but you probably don't need a lot of facts to feel one way or the other about this bill that you're proposing, I'd imagine, which you have already said is being and will be met with a lot of controversy.
No, I don't think so. I think you have to look at the original intent and the overall intent of that, and that is to save any type of child's life whatsoever. And so what this situation happened was nothing more than the process itself working out, and that's DHS receiving the welfare child checkups, going through their motions, and they removed a child from the home due to medical emergency situation. It caused that child to be placed into a hospital to need emergency care, and at that point, the way that the system is set up, the parents can claim the religious exemption clause to the local judge and the DA, in which they usually rule on that. What we're proposing here is we're not trying to take away the parental rights at all. We're not trying to take away them even claiming that exemption. What we want to do is give a guardian ad litem to that child. So who better to be in there advocating for the child's needs, just giving the judge and the DA a little bit more information on saying, listen, this is the possible circumstances if the child is pulled. These are the possible circumstances if the child stays, but not overruling the parents at all. We want to have an advocate for that child in those situations.
Sure, and I do kind of want you to elaborate on the religious reasoning here. I will come out and say I'm not a parent, so I can't come at this story from that perspective, but I, like a lot of our viewers watching right now, I am from a religious home, and a lot of what I'm hearing is I can't imagine for the life of me why a parent would ever deny a child the life-saving treatment that they could get and have access to. So kind of explain religious purposes for pulling treatment from a child and what those families' argument is when they do that.
Well, I think that, here in Oklahoma, being a very red state, very conservative state, anything that is upon the parent's decision or religious liberty is always going to be held up. I've always supported religious liberty. I've always supported the choice for parents, even within vaccinations. And I'm a Southern Baptist, and I'm not going to comment on what other denominations do or don't do, but I very much can understand. I'm a parent of 3, and I don't know if I could sit back and watch or make those kinds of decisions. That's what that family has decided to do. But what we're looking at is in these medical emergency situations. Not every situation is a medical emergency, and the state can't provide a guardian ad litem for every child out there. But in these situations, when that child's life is on the line, we want to have an advocate for that. Regardless of what the exemption is, or regardless of what the parents want to say, we need to have somebody in there advocating for that child. Since I've stood in the legislature, we've always fought for the life of the unborn. We always felt like the unborn need those rights and those rights protected. And I'd want to extend that to children and minors, even though they have parents. And those parents are making the best decisions they feel are for that child. We need to make sure that those minors have rights as well.
And do have to come at this, from the other side of things. I can hear parents at home saying, oh, how dare you decide what is best for my child? You don't know my child, you don't know my family. And ding, 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 a lot of First Amendment rights, buzzers going off too. How does this not interfere, with religious freedom?
Well, I think that's the way that we structured the bill. When you read it, it's providing that guardian ad litem for the child, not taking away the clause at all, just infusing more information for the judge to be able to make that decision. The parents can still claim, they can still advocate, they can still bring forth their reasons. It's not taking away their First Amendment rights. It's not taking away their religious liberties. We're going to, though, infuse in there and allow somebody to speak up for that child. Most of the time, the judge asks the parents, do they want a guardian to speak out for their child? And most of the time, the parents say no. Obviously, they're going to overrule that decision. We would just like to see in these medical emergency situations where a life might be on the line, we have a third-party advocate for the best needs of that child.
And taking it back to the Lincoln County case, which I know kind of spurred this whole Senate Bill 93 for you, just interested in what happened to the parents of that case. I was reading a study from 2009 out of the University of Houston Law Center, and correct me if this has changed since then, but it said there are currently no clearly defined limits for when a parent's choices not to seek medical care for a child is deemed negligent. Does that remain true, and what happened?
Yeah, from my
to his
understanding here in
parents?
the state of Oklahoma, we don't have a law that that claims negligence for anybody choosing that type of exemption. And I'm not necessarily saying that we should propose that. What happened in this case is I grew up in Lincoln County, listened to my constituents, had constituents call that work within the DHS, the specific DHS caseworker. It broke their heart. They were in the home with the child, that they worked on that case, and to sit back and watch that child return and pass away, it broke their heart. They feel like there's a loophole. Met with Director Lake. They feel like there's a loophole. We want to make sure we close this loophole, and if it saves a child's life, then that's worth proposing the legislation.
And if your Senate Bill 93 had been enacted back in December, you say it could have saved this child's life. What happens if that child were to have had a different religion from his or her parents? You know, at what point? And can children here in Oklahoma, does our state recognize the rights of a minor to ask for medical help despite what the parents believe?
That's what this legislation would be able to do, is to say if that child did disagree with the religious portion that their parents raised them under and wanted to seek that care, that guardian ad litem would be able to advocate for that judge. We don't know what the outcome would have been if this legislation was enacted. We don't know if that judge or that district attorney would have been able to say an error on the side of the child. We don't know what the child would have requested. We don't know if they would have sided with the parents or with the child. And so what we want to make sure moving forward is that we can advocate and have those advocates for the child, and make sure that information is proposed, and hopefully we can see somebody and a life saved out of this.
Okay, definitely a controversial bill, a very slippery slope, but a lot of people chimed in too. So on the other side of this break, if you'll just hang tight, I have a few more viewer questions for you. Thank you, Senator.